Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, TAYtalks. Today I have Isaiah Davis with me, here to talk about some hardships he's been through and what he's done to overcome them and maintain positivity. Thank you for joining me, Isaiah.
Of course, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. We actually got to meet, we got to talk about some things prior to this, and I think it was really cool to be able to come out here and express some of those things and talk about them. I really think that our generation is going through some things, considering like depression, anxiety, state of suicide, things like that. There's just people going through some different things, and there's been some things in my life that have led me to be able to go through those kind of troubles and be able to actually go out and help other people.
I know you've told me a little bit about some of the hardships that have happened in your life. But what are some huge ones that stand out to you, some main ones you want to give an overview about?
So a big thing that's occurred in my life that's definitely molded me into who I am today is my dad actually committed suicide when I was 1. And that's obviously had a clear effect on my entire life, and it's like just a huge ripple effect. And that leads to, asking questions as to was it my fault? Was it whose fault is it? Trying to play the blame game, trying to figure out who's at fault and things like that. And at the end of the day, I had to be able to just grow into a man and deal with things like that. People need their dads in their lives, obviously, but I was blessed enough to have other people there to help me to move through with rejection, and be able to deal with that and keep going. That's a hard thing, and it starts with minimal things. Not everything in life just happens overnight, and things that matter don't just happen like that. And you got to just keep going. It's a game of averages. That's what I like to say. Some days you're gonna go high, sometimes you're gonna go low, but you got to keep winning the average. That's where your main points come from and your main strengths, and just dealing with things like that.
When did you really realize I don't have a dad like other people do?
Yeah. Well, when you go to school and people start telling stories about their dads, and then you realize you're talking about your mom a lot, you start to notice things like that. Or just talking about sports talk. I didn't necessarily, when I was younger, I didn't necessarily know how to do that. I didn't watch a lot of sports when I was growing up. That's kind of all that started, was recognizing that other people talk about their dad too. What's that? So I started to try and put pieces together. My mom always told us our dad had passed away, but obviously how do you explain to your kid how that occurred really? So she didn't lie to us, but she didn't explain the full story. And it wasn't until I was about probably 9 or 10 years old, my grandparents actually told me. And then that's when I started recognizing things in myself that I didn't see in other boys my age, or other kids my age who they had their parents. You could see that connections, and I just didn't necessarily have those.
When you found out from your grandparents, what did they kind of tell you? Did you blame yourself? Did you blame anyone else on it when they told you?
And I started blaming him mainly, and really getting angry. And I chose the path of anger. I didn't choose to blame anybody but him. I didn't blame my mom. I didn't blame myself. I didn't blame anybody but him. I figured he's the one who did his thing, made his own decision. At the end of the day, that's on him. And I don't think that's the right way to do it either, because for someone to be able to do that to themselves, that's a mental health concern. They need help. That's not I should be angry or upset. And obviously it's tough, because we're all just human. So there's going to be feelings that we can't control, but we have to feel. So the way to get around that is by being able to start to associate real things with those feelings, such as how was he feeling when that happened. How was the situations occurring when that happened. But overall, I wasn't finding humor in anything. I wasn't finding the joy or happiness in the room. I couldn't find that or identify that anymore or relate to it anymore. I wasn't very empathetic, and I was very all about how I felt about something, and right. To heck with what everybody else was feeling. It was a very selfish time in my life. That happened between about 12 to 14, and it definitely took a toll on me, and it put a toll on my relationships, and I had to rebuild things, and lost some people in my life because of that. And that happens, people, we go through things, and that's life. But I grew from that, because I scraped that barrel. I scraped some of those feelings in myself and inside of me, and being able to feel those, I was able to start to identify them and figure out how I can deal with that and recognize those things, and be able to change myself. Because once you get there, you don't ever want to go back. You want to do everything to get away from there. Some days, yeah, you find yourself feeling like that again, but it just reminds you all the more of how much you fought to not be that person anymore.
What do you do during those bad days? How do you know you're having a bad day, and what do you do to overcome it and tell yourself that it probably doesn't matter in the long run?
Right. No. So when I was younger, it was really compulsive anger. Just when something would happen, it would be dynamite. There there was no build up. It was just right there, right now. This is how I'm feeling, and that was the end of it, you know. And let all the reactions afterwards be damned. You know, that's kind of how I felt about it. And now it's more of a, when I'm having a bad day, I catch myself being more aggressive to people like who are around me, who I care about, because when you start thinking about how you're communicating with people, you're way more likely to catch, like, when you're slipping up, when you're asking yourself constantly, how am I sounding to others? You know, when you're doing that, you're able to start catching when it's like, oh, I just snapped at them. Maybe I should go back and apologize. You know, maybe I said that a little too aggressively. I constantly keep people around me who aren't afraid to tell me, like, if I'm acting a certain way, either because they care about me, they want to know, not because they're offended, but because they want to know what's up with me if I'm acting a certain way. And to me, that means everything to me.
Would you say one of your coping mechanisms is self-reflection? Like,
yes.
What else do you do? Do you read? How do you?
I read. I believe reading is a big thing. Anything you take in and you read and you're processing, that's what you're putting into your heart and your mind, and that's what you're going to put out. There's a lot of good things out there to read and to take in, and media and things to listen to that are they'll just touch your heart differently. And I believe journaling is a very, very important thing. Like, that is self-reflection 101, because if you're mad in that moment, you can write as angry as you feel, nobody has to read it but you. And then when you go back 2 days later, you're gonna make
What was I thinking?
You're gonna make fun of yourself. You're like, wow, I was really mad that, you know, so and so ate my last so and so out of the fridge. Like, all right, like, was that worth me taking 20 minutes? No, but you can always go back and reflect. Like, all right, so next time this happens, I'll think back to when I wrote it. You know, and it just
then the next day you realize it was
exactly, and it just gives you references. And then I catch myself, because humans we're creatures of patterns. We write in patterns. We do everything in patterns. And for me, like, one of my coping mechanisms is I'll go back and look at my patterns and cycles of how I'm feeling, or around this time at this day, how was I feeling, you know? And if a similar situation comes up, I'll see how I handled it last time and start to take that into account with how I'm feeling, obviously whatever's going on at the moment that can influence that, you know? And you just gotta take a step back from it and realize, like, there's just more in store, there's more to do. Like, it's okay, like, you're allowed to feel your feelings, take it for what it is, move past it, go forward. You gotta realize, like, there's just a lot of things that we can't control. And once you start realizing that, you're gonna start, it's gonna be a competition to yourself, a challenge to yourself, like, wow, like, I really can do this, like, this is you take acceptance for things. And a lot of people can't do that, because it's tough, but it's definitely worth it.
What do you do now to kind of use the tough situation you've been through to teach others lessons, to help them with situations that they're going through?
Yeah, so to me, obviously, like, with being just there for your friends and things like that, it's huge, but everybody needs help at some point, you know, whether you're like, there's been times I've been walking on campus and there's kids that are really, like, not okay, and I've walked them all the way to their dorm, like, things like that. And it's just like, everybody's so afraid to be a good person, like, that they're gonna lose something from that. But what's the worst thing that can happen? You just take a couple minutes out of your day and just help somebody out, like, and it's from the slightest things, from holding doors for people, just to saying hi to anybody on the street, like, just being open to helping people. I think
even
that's
a smile, like,
exactly.
You never know if that's gonna make someone's day.
Exactly, because you never know what they're going through, and who knew that smile literally could have just been like, wow, like, wow, they smiled, nice. That was cool, right? Like, and there's such a big world with so many people around us. Like, how could you only really, like, be cool to yourself? Like, you know, like, how could you not, like, spread love and just try and help other people? Like, people are just so judgmental and feel so just, like, they create pressures on themselves. Like, I've never had anybody give me a hard time for helping somebody else out, like, ever. And to other people, they would think, like, oh, well, that's not me, I'm not the one to do it. And it's like, why not, though?
So what's one piece of advice that you would give someone who's going through a hardship, whether it be something similar to your situation or completely different, but it's a hardship to them?
I would just tell them to be okay with their feelings, and the best way to do that is to try and solve them. Like, you feel your feelings, yeah, but a lot of people don't, you know, especially when you're going through tough times. Like, you have to be able to feel those feelings so you can get past them. A lot of people...
So let yourself feel it.
Exactly.
Don't block it off. Let yourself cry.
Be in the moment. Live in the moment of your worst nightmare. Like, you have to be in the moment. You have to feel it. Take it head on. So then...
Give me chills.
Exactly. So when these things are holding on to you right now, like, they're not going to have the same power over you in years to come, you know? Things like, it just helps. Like, okay, for example, like, somebody passed away, right? A lot of times you have everybody around you, and people just kind of back off that as it gets farther and farther away, right? Well, when those people are dealing with that, with all those people around them, a lot of the time they can't truly feel like they can express themselves, because everybody's around them constantly keeping them busy. And so that's why you come to find months after is when people really start to go through, like, severe depression. And it's because they never really felt it. They kept themselves busy, and that's not dealing with things. That's bottling up. That's running away from your problems. The way you deal with that is taking it head on. You feel it. You accept it. You get through that moment.
Right.
By each day, you know, and just grow from that, so it doesn't have that same power over you eventually. Because if you keep running from it, it's only going to make it worse.
Do you recommend using a therapist, or?
Yeah, I believe nobody knows themselves better than themselves, obviously, but what comes with that is some people say, well, I don't need to talk to anybody. You're wrong. Sorry, buddy. But,
or people are scared to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I reckon, like, it's weird talking to people. It's really weird, especially it's really intimate talking to somebody about how are you feeling.
Your issues and your problems. Yeah.
Exactly. And if that's what you need, I talked to a therapist for a little while, and that just being able to get outside of just my friends, my family, talking about anything I felt like, and it helped me out just to be able to go a few times, you know, and like to me, like, that's powerful. Like you, like, oh wow, you went to therapy, like you were strong enough to go and try and fix yourself. Not many people do that, you know. A lot of people just bottle things up, or they make it other people's problems. To me, that's saying, you know, that's taking the most responsibility of your life by doing that and doing the things you got to do to get help when you're going through things.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Isaiah.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thank you guys for watching. Please consider liking this and sharing it. This could really help someone in need who's going through a similar situation that Isaiah has went through and is still going through. And then please subscribe, and you'll see the next TAYtalk videos as they come out.